Ask almost any Christian what they think about hell, and pictures of fire or torment probably come to mind. But do we have the whole picture? Let's talk about it on 3-Minute Theology. This video is part 2 of a series of videos on understanding the afterlife, so go check out last week's if you missed it. In our last video, we talked about the terminology the Bible uses for hell and how it's different from the place of the dead, Hades in the Greek or Sheol in Hebrew. We said that hell isn't being used yet, but Hades is. But what is it, and what does the Bible say about it? Let's start with an important question. What happened when people died before Jesus died on the cross? Well, before Jesus, whenever someone died, the Bible leads us to believe that everyone, good or bad, went to Hades or Sheol if you're talking Hebrew. And if you're wondering where Hades might be, the Bible builds a strong case that it's located in the lower parts of the earth. Now, the location is probably not super important, but it is interesting to speculate. So, what was Hades like before the cross? Well, Jesus tells an interesting story in Luke 16:19 through 31. Typically, we understand Jesus' parables to be fictional stories that illustrate a spiritual principle. However, this story reads like a factual account for a couple of reasons. First, Jesus doesn't call it a parable, and it's the only story where Jesus uses actual names of people. In addition, it's the only time he describes what happens after death with specific locations. Another reason this story is unique is that he describes things that happen outside the realm of human experience, which was different from his typical parable. All that leads me to believe this probably wasn't a fictional story, but actually serves to help us understand the nature of Hades before the cross. So, what does he teach us? It appears that Hades was divided into 2 compartments. One was a place of joy and comfort that is referred to as paradise or Abraham's bosom in the Bible. The other is a place of darkness, and at least for the characters in Jesus' story, a place of torment too. Now, an important thing to note, this is really the only place in Scripture where this part of Hades was called a place of torment. Other references to this place describe it as a dark and miserable place. Either way, it's never a place you want to go. The Bible seems to indicate that when people died, everyone went to Hades. And though we can't be certain what the exact qualifications were, it seems like to get into paradise required faith in God or in the promise of Christ that was to come, or like the guy on the cross next to Jesus, he simply recognized Jesus as the Son of God. Everyone else ended up in the place of darkness. We also see that there was some level of communication between the 2 compartments, but there was no way to cross this divide between them. So, based on this story in John 3:13, before Jesus gave access through his death and resurrection, no one could get to heaven. It seems like paradise was the compartment of Hades where they awaited the fulfillment of the promise of Jesus. Now, we know that these were different places than heaven or hell because we see in Revelation that Hades will be thrown into Gehenna or hell, and it seems that according to the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 12, that paradise was moved to heaven after what Jesus did. Now, in our next video, we'll dig deeper into what Jesus did in Hades and why it matters for us today. But that's all for this 3-Minute Theology. Until next time.